September 8th, 1944. 6:43 p.m. London, Chiswick. There is no siren, no rising wail, no warning, just a sudden, violent crack, as if the sky itself has split open. A column of fire punches through Staveley Road. Brick shatters, windows implode, the ground jumps beneath your feet. A bus is lifted like a toy and dropped twisted into the street. Smoke rolls upward in a black spiral. People look up, but there is nothing to see, because the weapon that just struck London traveled faster than sound. By the time anyone hears it, it has already exploded. This is not a bomber, not a V-1 buzz bomb with its coughing pulse jet. There is no engine noise cutting out overhead, no chance to dive for cover. This is something new, something impossible. Hundreds of miles away, beyond the North Sea, in a concrete control bunker near The Hague, a German officer lowers a headset. Einschlag bestätigt, he says quietly. Impact confirmed. A chalk mark is drawn across a board. Another successful launch. The weapon is called the Vergeltungswaffe 2, the Vengeance Weapon 2, the V-2. Designed under the direction of a young aristocratic engineer with movie star looks and an obsession with spaceflight, Wernher von Braun. To him, it is not merely a weapon, it is proof that rockets can reach the edge of space. But tonight, it is a ballistic missile carrying a 1-ton warhead into the heart of London. And there is nothing the British can do to stop it. The rocket rises vertically after ignition, 14 meters tall, fueled by liquid oxygen and alcohol. It weighs nearly 13 tons at launch. Its engine burns for 65 seconds, pushing it beyond 80 kilometers altitude, technically into space. Then the engine cuts off. Silence. It arcs downward in a graceful parabola, falling at over 3,500 miles per hour. Supersonic, untouchable. British radar can track it. Anti-aircraft guns cannot reach it. Fighters cannot intercept it. It is the first long-range guided ballistic missile in human history. And for a brief, terrifying moment, German scientists believe it may change everything. Inside the underground tunnels of Peenemünde, where the rocket program was born, engineers crowd around trajectory tables. They run calculations by slide rule. They adjust gyroscopes. They whisper about precision and payload efficiency. This is no crude terror weapon. This is engineering elegance. When British bombers attacked Peenemünde in 1943, killing technicians and delaying production, many feared the project would die. Instead, production was moved underground, to a place called Mittelwerk, a mountain hollowed out into a factory. And there, in darkness thick with dust and exhaustion, thousands of forced laborers assemble the future of warfare under SS supervision. The rockets are advanced, the conditions are medieval. The German High Command has a dream: strike London without risking pilots, shatter morale, force Britain to negotiate. Adolf Hitler demands miracle weapons, Wunderwaffen, to reverse the tide of war. And the V-2 is presented as exactly that, a weapon beyond defense, beyond interception, beyond imagination. But there is a problem no one in the bunker wants to say out loud. The front lines are collapsing. By September 1944, Allied forces have already landed in Normandy. Paris has been liberated. American and British troops are racing toward the German border. In the east, the Red Army pushes relentlessly westward. Germany is shrinking. Fuel is scarce. Railways are bombed daily. The Luftwaffe can barely defend its own skies. And yet, Immense resources are being poured into rockets. Each V-2 costs as much as a bomber aircraft. Each launch consumes precious alcohol and liquid oxygen. Each rocket requires transport by specialized Mittelwerk vehicles and mobile fueling units. For what? A single explosion, a few dozen casualties, shock, but no strategic shift. Still, when the first V-2 strikes London, fear spreads faster than any bomber ever could. There is no defense, no warning, just random annihilation. British intelligence scrambles to understand what they are facing. Some believe it is a gas explosion. Others whisper about new German artillery. Only gradually does the truth emerge. The weapon falls from space. Back in Germany, von Braun stands.
The tunnels breathe like something alive. Cold air moves through the mountain at Nordhausen, carrying the smell of oil, metal, and human exhaustion. Electric lamps flicker along concrete walls. The ceiling drips. Boots echo endlessly. This is Mittelwerk, a factory carved into rock. No windows, no daylight, no sky. Here, the V-2 is born. Rows of half-finished rockets hang from assembly rigs like enormous steel carcasses. Their guidance systems are wired by trembling hands. Turbopumps are bolted into place. Warheads are fitted and sealed. The engineers wear clean uniforms. The laborers do not. More than 20,000 prisoners pass through the adjacent concentration camp of Mittelbau-Dora. Many will not survive. In the early months, they sleep inside the tunnels on bare rock, choking on dust from blasting charges and chemical fumes. Some collapse at their stations. Others disappear quietly. The rockets move forward anyway. SS guards pace the catwalks above the production floor. Efficiency is everything. If a worker falters, he is removed. If a rocket fails inspection, it is dismantled and rebuilt. Precision matters. Germany's reputation as a nation of engineers demands it. And yet, the irony is unbearable. The most advanced weapon in the world is being assembled by starving men in the dark. In a briefing room nearby, engineers gather around trajectory charts. Gyroscopic guidance systems are discussed in clipped tones. The V-2's inertial navigation system is revolutionary. Once launched, the rocket guides itself. No radio correction, no pilot. Pure mathematics. A triumph of physics. Major General Walter Dornberger oversees the military side of the program. He believes the V-2 is Germany's last strategic lever. We must strike London relentlessly, he insists. He wants saturation, thousands of rockets, continuous impact. But production cannot keep pace with ambition. The rocket itself is temperamental. Liquid oxygen must be loaded at the last possible moment. The alcohol fuel must be pure. A minor impurity can cause catastrophic turbopump failure. Gyros drift, fins crack under stress. Some rockets explode seconds after launch, collapsing back onto their own crews. Every launch is a gamble. And yet, the scientists are proud, because when it works flawlessly. The rocket climbs higher than any aircraft. It crosses the edge of space. It returns with unstoppable velocity. They have built something no one else on Earth possesses. For a moment, in the sealed concrete silence of Mittelwerk, it feels like victory through technology. But beyond the mountain, reality presses closer. American bombers flatten German rail yards daily. Oil refineries burn. Synthetic fuel plants are rubble. The Reich is starving for gasoline. And without fuel, even rockets cannot fly. In early 1945, the Red Army is less than 200 miles from Berlin. In the west, American forces cross the Rhine. Yet, inside the tunnels, engineers continue their calculations as if the war still hangs in balance. They adjust trajectories, they refine combustion chambers, they debate improvements that might increase range by a few kilometers. It is as if they believe physics can reverse geopolitics, as if equations can stop tanks. But the rockets, for all their brilliance, cannot hold territory. They cannot stop infantry. They cannot replace divisions lost at Stalingrad or Normandy. They can only fall and explode. Then comes the quiet realization. Even if every rocket hits its target, it changes nothing. London does not surrender. Factories keep producing. Allied armies keep advancing. The V-2 inspires fear, but fear alone does not win wars. And deep inside the tunnels, a question begins to surface among the scientists, one they barely dare to speak. What happens to us when Germany loses?
January 12, 1945. Eastern Front. The sky over the Vistula River glows orange. Soviet artillery rolls forward like thunder that never stops. Entire horizons pulse with muzzle flashes. German divisions crumble under the weight of Operation Vistula Oder. The Red Army is no longer pushing, it is devouring. Inside a command bunker near Berlin, maps are updated in red pencil. Arrows sweep westward. The front is collapsing faster than anyone predicted. And yet, in Holland, V-2 rockets still launch toward London. In The Hague, mobile launch crews move through forests at night. The Mailerwagen trailers carry the rockets upright like skeletal towers. Camouflage nets are thrown aside. The rocket is raised. Fuel lines are connected. Liquid oxygen hisses into tanks. A countdown begins. 60 seconds of ignition flame. Then the rocket rises in a pillar of white fire. It vanishes into cloud cover. The crews cheer. But even they know something has changed. The launches feel symbolic. The Allies are no longer discussing survival. They are discussing victory. In London, civilians grow accustomed to the randomness. There is no defense, so there is no panic. When explosions come, rescue crews respond with grim routine efficiency. Rubble is cleared. Names are listed. Life resumes. Winston Churchill addresses Parliament with steady resolve. The weapon is terrifying, yes, but it is not decisive. Allied intelligence has already pieced together the supply chain. Allied bombers target fuel depots and rail networks feeding the launch sites. The noose tightens slowly. The V-2 may be unstoppable in flight, but it is vulnerable on the ground. At Mittelwerk, whispers circulate among senior engineers. Wernher von Braun senses the shift first. He is not naive. He understands military reality. Germany is losing on every front. Berlin may fall within months. He gathers his closest team, men who think not just about war, but about space, the moon, Mars, a future beyond conflict. If the Reich collapses, their work will not simply vanish, it will be claimed. The Americans want it. The Soviets want it. Everyone understands the value of the rocket. The V-2 is not just a weapon, it is the beginning of a new age. Major General Dornberger remains focused on military objectives. He pushes for increased launches. He demands better accuracy. He believes concentrated strikes could disrupt Antwerp's vital port operations. But reality intrudes. Production numbers never reach expectations. Around 3,000 V-2s will be launched before the war ends. For all the resources consumed, slave labor, rare metals, precious fuel, the strategic impact is minimal. Thousands killed, cities shaken, but no divisions destroyed,
No invasions halted. The rockets fall. The Allies advance. February 1945. American forces close in on the western edges of Germany. Soviet troops cross into East Prussia. Refugees flood roads in endless columns. Inside the tunnels at Nordhausen, engineers pack documents into crates. Design schematics, test data, propulsion notes. Some burn records, others hide them. Wernher von Braun makes a decision that will shape the rest of the century. He will not let the Soviet Union take his team. If Germany cannot win the war, perhaps they can choose who inherits the future. In March, an explosion rocks a V-2 launch site in Holland. Allied bombers have found new targets. Fuel supplies dwindle. Launch frequency decreases. The miracle weapon is running out of time. And for the first time, the scientists feel it fully. The war will end before the rocket reaches its potential.
March 28, 1945, Bavaria. Snow melts along the edges of Alpine roads. American artillery echoes faintly in the distance, like a storm approaching through mountains. In a convoy of trucks moving south, a small group of German engineers sits in silence. Wernher von Braun is among them. His arm is in a cast from a recent car accident, or perhaps from something more desperate. Rumors circulate that he staged the crash to avoid interrogation by the SS after openly discussing space travel instead of weapons. The Reich is fracturing. Orders contradict each other. Some demand continued launches. Others whisper about sabotage. Berlin has issued a final directive: destroy critical technology before it falls into enemy hands. Scorched earth, no inheritance. But von Braun and his inner circle make a different calculation. If they burn the research, decades of progress vanish. If they surrender to the Soviets, they may disappear into forced labor programs in the East. If they reach the Americans, there is possibility. In hidden caves and abandoned mines across southern Germany, rocket documents are buried inside steel drums, blueprints wrapped in oilcloth, test results carefully sealed. It is not just self-preservation, it is ambition. The V-2 has proven something extraordinary. A rocket can reach the edge of space and return with controlled precision. The weapon has failed strategically, but the technology has succeeded scientifically, and everyone knows it. April 11, 1945. American troops from the 3rd Armored Division reach Nordhausen. They are not prepared for what they find. Inside the tunnels of Mittelwerk lie unfinished rockets, hundreds of them. Machinery still hums faintly. Tools are scattered where workers fled. Outside, the horrors of Mittelbau Dora are exposed. Bodies, mass graves. The cost of the miracle weapon is undeniable. The Americans immediately understand the value of what sits inside that mountain. Crates of components are seized, engineers are tracked down, intelligence officers begin interrogations. The race has begun. Von Braun makes contact with U.S. forces in early May. He does not surrender as a defeated scientist. He negotiates as a man offering the future. Major Robert Staver of the U.S. Army Ordnance Corps listens carefully. The Americans have already initiated plans under what will become known as Operation Paperclip, a program to recruit German scientists before the Soviets can. Von Braun offers his team, his knowledge, his rockets in exchange for survival. Meanwhile, Soviet forces capture Peenemünde. They gather remaining equipment and specialists. Two superpowers, once allies, are now competitors, and the V-2 is the prize, not because it won the war, but because it represents what comes next. May 8, 1945. Germany surrenders unconditionally. The Third Reich collapses. The V-2 never altered the outcome. It did not force Britain to negotiate. It did not stop Allied armies. It did not save Berlin. Innovation without strategy could not rescue a crumbling regime. But as the smoke clears, something else becomes visible. The first object built by humans that reached space. The first true ballistic missile, the ancestor of both the ICBM and the Saturn V.
October 24, 1946. White Sands Proving Ground, New Mexico. The desert is silent. A captured V-2 stands upright against an endless American sky. Its black and white checkered pattern marks it as something repurposed, a weapon stripped of insignia, reborn under new command. American engineers step back. Ignition. The engine roars to life with a violent, familiar fury. A pillar of flame erupts beneath the rocket. Sand turns to glass. The desert trembles. Then it rises. Not over London, not over Antwerp, but over the American Southwest. For the first time, a former weapon of the Third Reich climbs into space, carrying scientific instruments, cameras, cosmic ray detectors, atmospheric sensors. The rocket reaches over 100 kilometers altitude, and this time, the data matters more than the explosion. Wernher von Braun watches from a distance. He is no longer wearing a German uniform. He speaks cautiously, carefully, adjusting his accent for American officers. Around him stand former colleagues, men who once served the Reich, now serving a different flag. They are not heroes. They are not villains in this moment. They are engineers, and their creation has outlived the regime that built it. The Americans dismantle hundreds of V-2 components shipped from Europe. They study turbopumps. They reverse engineer guidance systems. They learn from both the successes and the catastrophic failures. Meanwhile, across the Iron Curtain, Soviet engineers do the same. Sergei Korolev, the future architect of the Soviet space program, studies captured V-2 technology intensely. His R-1 rocket is directly derived from it. The Cold War is born not just from ideology, but from shared inheritance. Both sides understand what the V-2 proved. Rockets can cross continents. Rockets can carry unimaginable payloads. Rockets can reach space. In 1957, when the Soviet Union launches Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, the shock felt in Washington echoes faintly back to Peenemünde. The race that began in secret Nazi laboratories is now global. In 1969, when Saturn V engines ignite beneath Apollo 11, sending astronauts toward the moon, the roar carries history inside it. Von Braun stands at Kennedy Space Center as the rocket lifts. This time, there is no warhead, no destruction, only three men riding fire toward another world. The same physics, the same equations, the same dream he once held as a young engineer in Germany, but now realized under a different flag. The V-2 never saved the Reich. It never altered the battlefield. It killed thousands, more in its construction than in its impact. Strategically, it was a failure. Technologically, it was a revolution. And that is the paradox.